Hi, my name's Steve Gravestock. I'm senior programmer at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it's my great pleasure to welcome the team from the film you just saw, Worst Person in the World, writer-director Joachim Trier, and Renate Reinsve, who's the lead who plays Julie in the film, and recently won the Best Actress prize at Cannes. So congratulations, guys. Please welcome them digitally or however you do that in these days. But congrats. I guess Cannes was kind of fun.
Yeah, no, it was great fun, but I have to say, Steve, this is the fifth film I've had the honor to screen at Toronto, and you've been the guy that's been primarily doing all the Q&As when I'm there, and it's lovely to see you. I think that Toronto Film Festival have probably some of like the greatest audiences of any festival. There's this incredible enthusiasm, so I'm kind of bummed not to be there this year, but I hope I make another movie and you invite me back for a sixth time. Just wanted to put that out there and say hi to the audience. But Renate, I'll leave the can. What was the experience to you?
Well, yeah, it was. I heard from a lot of people who have been there many times that it was quite quiet this year, but we didn't. I didn't. This was my first time. It was crazy. What do you like? I'm still like overwhelmed. Like I'm still like getting flushed just thinking about it. No, it was like really wonderful and crazy and just amazing experience. It will it's staying. I think it will stay for a while.
The special thing for us as well was during the post-production of The Worst Person in the World. On all my previous films, we've had done quite big test screenings during editing. We've had, a few hundred people in a couple of times and been in an audience and felt, the structure and the response. This time we were not allowed because of COVID to do test screening for more than 5 people at once. So coming to Cannes and screening for 2,300 people, the first time I'm experiencing the film we did in an audience was quite overwhelming and great, but it was a very special moment for us.
Yes, and I think the nicest thing about it was how so many people connected personally to the film and the role of Julie. That was a really big thing for me, or for us, that people really just felt the movie and saw themselves in it, and it was really nice.
Yeah, I've a lot of people who've seen the movie have talked about how they saw themselves in the character of Julie and other characters as well too. I think a lot of the characters resonate. I mean, one of the things that we'll get to that later. I did want to. I mean, one of the things I think that's great about that's really interesting about The Worst Person is that, I mean, it's the third part of a trilogy that began with Reprise and continued with Oslo, August 31st, and both of them follow, younger people at a crossroads, the first two films, and there's an element of finality kind of hanging over their choices. I mean, in Reprise, it's sort of the end of that kind of youthful enthusiasm, and obviously, it's a kind of similar thing, although, different in Oslo, and in Worst Person in the World. I mean, there is that element of finality, obviously, with the character of Axel, but what's really drives the movie is that sense of possibility and that curiosity and that energy that's in Julie. Primarily, I mean, other people in a little bit, but mostly in Julie. Do you want to talk about that kind of shift and how it fits in with the other two films? And
I think that when Eskil and I sat down, Eskil Vogt, who I always write with, my writing partner, we had a couple of things we wanted to do. First of all, we wanted to go back to basics, and basics for us would then be try to see now 15 years later whether we could work within that kind of free structure of Reprise, our debut film, that kind of free jazz, fragmentation, voiceover, the novelistic form, and in this case, just chapters where a little piece of the film could be a film in itself, and it could have different styles working at once to try to portray the journey, almost like a coming of age story about a grown up who still doesn't feel like a grown up. But to have that sense of sympathy for the freedom of the character mirrored in the form of the film. So that was something that was really taking us back to the roots. But also we're older, and I think to your question, I think we wanted also to make a film about a hopeful film about the comic tragedy of experiencing relationships and love, and I think we're a bit older. Maybe we are a bit more hopeful. Maybe we're not that dystopic and negative as we were in our 20s. Maybe we experienced that there is a place for self-love. And I feel after Oslo August 31st, who has quite a hardcore, devastating ending, without spoiling it for those that haven't seen it, which I think was truthful for that character. I took to heart the fact that Anders Danielsen Lie, when reading The Worst Person in the World, was the one that actually said, you know what? This is kind of a third installment. You should call it a trilogy. It wasn't a plan. It was something he came up with. And he said something really lovely the other day when we were with Renate and Anders and I. And he said, I feel that he imagined that Julie was Anders in Oslo August 31st little sister. And how do you feel about that, Renate? I thought that was an interesting statement from him.
Yeah, it was, because they are both so privileged. They have all the abilities to have a really wonderful life, and then they're still so unhappy and unsettled in being them. So I think it's a lot of the same characters in them. Yeah.
But a different temperament, perhaps. A different. There's a lot of joy in Julie, which I think is what was fun, because that's another thing I got to put out there. It's written for Renate. Renate plays a small part in Oslo August 31st that people might not have noticed. She's one of the girls bicycling around Oslo towards the end of that film.
Yeah.
10
I have one line, and it's, let's go to the party.
So
that's
I promise
an important
you.
line.
Yeah, it's a good line, but I promise you, Renate.
It made my life.
Yeah. No, but it was good to do a proper lead. You deserve the lead part, and no, it was really fun to write this for you, because I know I've seen you do a lot of great theater, and you haven't had a lead in a feature before, and there's something about your ability to be both very dramatic and emotionally open for many things, but also you have a great sense of humor. And I adore that in the way you act. And I think that I could lean on that in writing a character that has joy and energy, perhaps in a slightly different and new way for my filmmaking as well. So I think you brought that to this film.
How did you respond when you read the script for the first time?
It was, I think I cried like 3 times before page 7. I was just, it wasn't because it was sad, because it's a lot of fun, and the structure of the film is different from the script after the editing. But it was just, I was a bit nervous because it's 2 men writing a female role, and I know Joachim was also nervous, so it was like I was tense, like opening the script, and then I felt so. I connected so much with the role, like from the start, and I think I just laughed so much about her going into a party that she wasn't invited to, and she was also like stealing stuff it's not in the movie, but she was like she was a badass in a fun, charming way, and but also she had this like sadness and loneliness, and I think it's so subtle in the script, but very present also. I think it was just like to read it for the first time was just an explosion of emotion, and I was so happy to feel so connected to the role. Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to I mean, one of the, in both Reprise and Oslo, I mean, Oslo is a main, like a a central character in the films. You know, I mean, there's always there's always I mean, obviously Oslo has a much more, you know, bleaker conclusion, but there is that, even in the party scene, in the, like that scene when you know the line you had in Oslo where it's like, let's go to the party there, but there's a sense, sorry, a bit of a tangled beginning there, but there, I mean, your portrait of Oslo is it's quite romantic often. I don't think I've seen a more romantic vision of Oslo in any films. Do you want to talk a bit about the role that the city plays in the film?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm a film buff. You know, I grew up learning about cities from other filmmakers, and then going to those cities and realizing that those were very subjective and beautiful cinema cities. Like, I don't know, Spike Lee's Bed-Stuy. I went out to Bed-Stuy and had a pizza and looked around, and, you know, Mookie wasn't there, you know, but it still had a sense that, and Scorsese's New York is a different one, you know, and Woody Allen's is a different one, and many, many filmmakers. And it's the same thing about Paris, you know, these great cities. So I guess I can only do one Oslo, and there's this ambivalence, you know, about a city, for me personally, about a city that's radically changing, developing. We're playing around with the idea in this one about the area called Barcode right now, which is sort of high-rise buildings. It looks like parts of Toronto or parts of New York, or something. You know, it's got that kind of industrial, very modern vibe, which is slightly sterile, but it's in the middle of this town that's in a valley, which is Oslo, with all the hills. So you know, I'm trying to find beauty, and I'm curious, but I also feel that there's a very specific thing that I noticed this time, since I worked with a Danish DP, the wonderful Kasper Tuxen this time. Denmark is completely flat, and Oslo has so many hills. And his first thing was like, we gotta use the hills. And it was already in the script, but even to a larger extent, this idea that Julie is walking kind of on the brink of the city, looking down and asking herself the question, what am I gonna do with my time here? You know, what am I gonna achieve? Why am I so lost? It almost becomes this kind of existential vantage point, looking down into the city. And that's quite specific. Not all cities have that, particularly not like sort of capitals of countries in Europe. They're often just by port, but we have these mountains around it. It's kind of interesting. But beyond that, when people ask me about Oslo sociologically, like, what have you discovered about the demography or the gentrification and stuff? And I'm always like cautious about commenting. I want to comment with the camera. I want to show you, and then other people can make those smart sociological conclusions, you know?
Yeah. I have to say, I thought of Paris a lot in the film. It felt very sort of, there were elements of the French New Wave, and you know, that kind of free-flowing engagement with the world that remind, and especially with the character of Julie. She reminded me a lot of a Jean Moreau type character, somebody who lived life on her own terms, which I thought was, you know, that was the connection for me.
Thank you. That's right there. Thank you very much, Steve.
Oh, no problem. I do want to ask. I mean, what there was a great discussion of amongst Tiff programmers about what happened with Anders, with Axel's character, because people were, you know, crushed at what happened, you know, when he's diagnosed. And was that always, how did people respond? I mean, it's really, I think to me, it shows an indication of how much the film is touching people, and through Julie, but also through the character of Axel and, you know, other characters as well. But I mean,
I'll speak to that. I agree. I think that's sort of the hidden, perhaps at the outset when we talk about the film, you know, that's kind of the surprise of it. Now that we're speaking to people who have seen it, we know that we made it, and Renate and I were always very, very engaged in like how to make the two guys work. And I think Renate had great input on also the perspectives on the different characters that Julie becomes with them. And clearly, I think Anders Danielsen Lee, who plays Axel, who I've worked with before in Reprise and Oslo, you know, I think
great
he does
acting.
an amazing job. I'm so proud about how far he pushes that character into a very honest and vulnerable place, beyond almost anything I've seen him do before. And what he gives to the film is this amazing contrast and perspective, where Julie's character have to realize that time isn't infinite. You learn through loss of being grounded and the importance of some sense of acceptance and pragmatism, even though she is a wonderful dreamer and an idealist, and we love those characters, obviously. But I think Axel brings in a different perspective in this film. And yeah, I think that's kind of the climax is, and one of the reasons we wanted to write the film, Eskil and I, was also the construction of the fact that two people who've been together and who really love each other on some level, but experience bad timing. The bad timing of not being in the right place and time to be with each other, have, because they know that their time is completely out, because he's going to pass away, can have a very, very honest conversation, like you almost cannot have with anyone you've been in a relationship with, because there's always a strategy of the possibilities of the future. So when the future is gone and she is pregnant, that opens up the possibility to write some types of very intimate dialogues. That was kind of the concept. We don't work with plot usually as a trigger. We work much more with character and situations that we want to film and make. But I think that construction towards the end of The Worst Person in the World was really one of the reasons we wanted to make the film. That meeting between those two at the hospital, which is kind of a whole act of the film in itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Do you want to talk about how you got? I have to say, I mean, to me, that is it's an essential part of the film. Although I can understand why people were upset, or it like wasn't critical. It was just like it was a big emotional blow. But but to me, that really that's the element in the script that gives Julie's decisions like gravity. It like, you know, and her again, like it makes it. She knows that, you know, she's not always going to be in this situation, that she'll get older. And it was obviously a fear, you know, it's a fear in the mushroom party sequence too. So it was which is a great scene, by the way. I mean, it must have been fun to do the scene where everything freezes and Julie runs off to meet
Ivan.
Ivan, yeah, sorry. Which I thought was a beautiful sequence. Do you guys want to talk about shooting that one?
Well, I just have to say, I really like it's so much fun. Like, you wanted it to do it like old school, so it's no special effects. It's just like an entire, like half the city was blocked off when we did that. I met so many people who were annoyed that they couldn't get through the city because of the scenes. So it was it was amazing. It felt like being in something really like an epic scene. Yeah,
no, it was fun. It was we wanted, as Renate pointed out, I said to everyone, like, I don't want it to be this slick, perfect kind of CGI, digital, refined thing. I want it to feel like a musical number where everyone contributed. Like the city is accepting that the love story is going on, so like time is out the window. It's frozen, and it's a weird reference, but since, you know, I know there's a lot of people that come to these screenings that are film fans like myself, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when he sings Twist and Shout in Chicago and everyone dances, it's like beyond reality. Growing up, that was my favorite scene. Like that's just like Ferris Bueller is singing and the city's dancing, and I kind of wanted Julie to have that same. The city is accepting somehow that this great romantic thing is happening, and shooting it felt like that. A lot of people contributed. Like, we, even while shooting a long take down a street where you're running, we discovered that a couple of people who had not been invited, who had been watching us do this thing where everyone just stood still, had joined in. Like people who it became a bigger thing. And it was really one of the most fun times I've had making movies.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Go ahead.
And you, Renate, you were, I mean, you had this incredible energy. You kept running. I mean, it was like a workout every time we did one.
Yeah, but it was the best. And you were putting on music. What song was it again? Like every single day, it was the same.
Yeah, we were doing boogie. Like we did the Commodores. Brick House was one of your favorites. We did Jermaine Jackson, the Stevie Wonder produced album he did in '81. A lot of like good sort of post-disco boogie stuff that you responded to. So I was like, okay, let's go deep there. That's what makes Renate run.
Yeah.
I love the Ferris Bueller reference. My son, we made the mistake of showing Ferris Bueller to my son, and he loved it, and we were like surprised. He was quite young when he saw it. And then, of course, the next year at school, he phoned in sick. He constantly said he was sick with cold palms. And we were like,
we need that rebellion. It's good. It's a healthy thing. And Ferris Bueller, he lives the whole world. He lives a year in that day. That's what we should all do once in a while. I think it's a good film.
Yeah, and he's very related to Julie, I think, that character. So
I agree. There's some,
Anyway, I'm afraid we have to wrap up, but we'll get more time for the 6th film.
Yeah.
I look forward to it. Thanks again for having us, and big love to the Toronto audience. I hope to come back soon.
I'm sure they're sending it to you too. So thanks a lot, man, and congrats. And thanks, Renate.
Thank you. Thank you.